Hello everyone, welcome. First ever Leeton Live. So, could someone comment if you can hear me, sounds okay, etc. Just so I know everything's working because I've never done this before. So, just get a comment come through just to confirm that the sound's okay. Anyone? No? Okay. I shall continue. If I'm not getting any comments, the comments working? Let me just check something. All chat. Yeah, we're on all chat. I'll just type a comment. Is the sound okay? Thank you, Mags. Thank you. There's a bit of a delay on the messages as they come through, so thank you for coming along. I thought I'd do this live as a bit of a celebration, really, of the 1,000 subscribers. If someone had said to me in June 22 when I started this channel, I'd be sat here today doing a live, I wouldn't have believed them. So, yeah, a real surprise for me. And I only really started the channel because we moved here in 21. We spent some time knocking the house about, and then the garden sort of became of interest. We bought the house really because it had a good sized garden, and it was kind of, let's do a channel on developing the veg plot, etc. So that's how it started. It was more for our own memories and looking back, and here we are. So thank you very much to everybody that has subscribed, commented, liked, and everything else on the videos I do. It really is appreciated. And I've picked tonight, a Sunday night. I've tried to avoid all the other lives that go on. I don't want to step on anybody's toes. You know, all the YouTubers out there are good, and there's room for everybody. So hopefully I'm not upsetting anybody tonight. So loose chat is about, are you ready for spring? So put in the comments what you're doing this spring, how you're getting ready for spring. I've still got a lot to do, I must admit. I've still got compost to spread on the beds. I've got potato pots to sort out. I've not sown any seeds direct yet, other than broad beans. And I was down the plot today in between the rain. It's been raining here all day, really quite heavy at times as well. And I did notice a couple of shoots from the broad beans starting to come through. So I'm probably going to have to get down there in the next, well, tomorrow really, and put something over them before the pigeons come down and take them all away. What else? I've got a board over here. If I keep looking that way, I've got a board with bullet points on, and it's just a piece of plasterboard, to be honest, out of the house. So, yeah, my potato pots are still full of wood chip from all of the trees that they've cut down. So I'm going to have to find somewhere to put that before I can plant the potatoes. And I had a disaster the other day with some lettuce. I'd sown a tray of lettuce, and I was turning the pots round on this windowsill so that they were growing straight with the light, and dropped the pot. Not only did I drop the pot landed fully upside down, and I don't think they're salvageable. I think I'm going to have to sow them again. And yeah, at least they were only lettuce, not chilies. So that's not too bad. So we've got a few comments there. Who we've got? So Julie's asking, Julie, that's my partner. She's in on the live. Julie's asking, what's the best veggies to plant out now? Now, I would probably say onions. Not too bad now. They're cold hardy. some of your brassicas could probably go out now. It depends where you live and your forecast, your temperatures, etc. Michelle, hi Michelle, how you doing? Mags, I'm feeling a bit anxious about spring this year. Weather has been so wet and cold, I haven't been able to sort potato pots. Still got a raised bed to build too. Mags, I think we're all, I think the weather for all of us this spring's not been great, has it? It's really wet here. The ground's squelching when we walk on it. And I think we just got to wait for it to dry out a bit. And certainly building things like raised beds in the rain isn't going to be a lot of fun. Potato pots, yeah. Getting the compost sorted for them. And I don't know about you guys, but where we are, the soil temperature is still only about 5 degrees. So it's still a bit cold to be planting things like potatoes. I'm going to wait until it gets up to 8 degrees and above, I think. Although in pots, you could probably do it a bit earlier. The pots will warm up a lot faster than the ground. And especially if you've been keeping your compost in bags, they're going to heat up a lot quicker. So yeah. So has anyone got any seeds sown direct yet? Who's got stuff sown direct into the ground at the moment? Because like I say, I haven't put any carrots in yet. I haven't put any parsnips in yet. They're normally things that I would always sow direct. So it's a really slow start, I think, this March. We had a really cold February, which has made the ground really cold. We had a warm February and then we've had a cold March, and it isn't warming up as fast as it has done in previous years. Ian McLaren, hi, thanks for joining in. With the last year's bad summer and this wet spring, should we all be buying polytunnels? Well, Ian, I think if you can afford a polytunnel, that's probably not a bad idea. If you can afford one, you've got space for one, then yeah, I certainly would be. And hopefully this autumn, we will get our tunnel covered. And the reason it isn't covered yet is because it's a cheap Amazon polytunnel frame that I want to reinforce with some extra steel and bits and pieces before we put the cover on it, because we get some really hellish winds here and I don't want the thing being destroyed in a storm if I don't reinforce it. So Michelle, Julie, Mags, Alan, hi Alan, thanks for joining us. Yeah, everything is good here, mate. I hope it is with you. Crochet Mama, hi, new sub here. I've been watching your videos, learning a lot. Thank you very much. You can always comment on the videos, ask questions. If I know the answer, I'll tell you. Sometimes I don't know the answer. I don't know everything. I don't believe any gardener knows everything. So yeah, if I don't know, I will say that I don't know. So, and what have you got left to sow? If you have been sowing things already direct, what have you got left to sow? I was watching some videos the other day. People are sowing spinach and kale and things like that direct already. They must live somewhere where the soil's a bit warmer than it is here. It certainly wouldn't work for us here, so not at the moment. When can you plant aubergine? Aubergine at the moment, you should be starting off in seeds, from seeds, maybe a month ago, really. You should have been starting those. In fact, in this propagator, this is the pot that we are attempting to get some aubergines to germinate in. Nothing coming up yet, but they do like a warm temperature to get going. And at long last, after my second attempt at sowing chilies this year, I do have some success. Late, I must admit, I am running late this year, but we have so far 2 sweet peppers coming up, and we've got some Tabasco chili peppers seedlings coming on. So hopefully all is not lost on the chili and pepper front this year. And if you are only just starting out with them, there's still time, especially if you're going to grow them in a greenhouse or a polytunnel. Michelle, hi Jay, it's all good, thanks. Just tired of the rain like most of us. Yeah, I know, it's really annoying, isn't it? Really, really annoying. Especially when you're trying to get things done, projects out in the garden. And I was lucky yesterday, I managed to get those steps built and things, because you're working between the rain all the time. Crochet Mama, I've got a lot of germinating under lights indoors. I can't seem to get my sweet peas to germinate though. Tried 2 lots and they haven't done anything. Any tips, please? Have you tried to chip them? If you put the actual seeds on some damp kitchen roll in a little plastic container, and put them somewhere dark so they think that they're buried, that may help. That may start them chitting, and you'll see a little tiny shoot come out of the pea. And if you soak the peas in water overnight, just some tepid water, and then put them on the damp kitchen roll, put them in a cupboard in the dark for a few days, and you'll probably get some shoots. I did do a video on, it was marrow fat peas, where I did that. It was probably a few weeks ago. So I explained how to do that. Mags, I need to sow lettuce, carrots and parsnips, as well as courgettes and some flowers. Yeah, I'm with you there, Mags. I need to sow some more lettuce now as well. Although I do have some iceberg coming along in pots. Just growing those on indoors for a little while. So not all is lost for the lettuce yet. Carrots, I will only sow direct because they don't transplant. Sowing them in pots and then transplanting them just doesn't work. Not for me anyway. Same with parsnips. And with parsnips, guys, they are notoriously bad at germination. Even if you've bought a new packet of seeds, they're still bad. So I always sow at least, if I wanted 1 parsnip, I would sow 3. And they have such a poor germination rate. So, and if you've got old seed, sow 5 if you want 1. Courgettes, yeah, I'm going to do those later in the month because we're renovating the house and we're on the final stages of it. This room is our temporary kitchen. So last year I had so much stuff growing in here ready for the spring, but I can't do that this year. So courgettes, because they grow so quickly and just take over, I'm going to do them later this year, and they'll soon catch up. As soon as the warm weather arrives, they'll catch up. Crochet Mama, I've tried soaking them for 24 hours, then sowing them, but still nothing. Are they good seed? How old are the seed? Try chitting them if you haven't on some damp kitchen roll. And if that doesn't work, then maybe get some new seeds. Michelle Welsh, only onions in the garden at the Mo. Peas and carrots have started in the greenhouse. Okay, so are you growing carrots in pots, in buckets or something? And you've got your onions out, so yeah, brilliant. Do you have a problem with pigeons and things coming down and taking the baby onions? I'll try the damp kitchen roll. Thank you. I'll have a look at the video. Yeah, give that a try. Because I was really struggling to get the Marifat peas to germinate. I tried twice last year to grow them and failed both times. So I thought this year I will chit them and see if that helps. And it really has made a difference. Julie, how do you grow fresh ginger? I did a video on that. You can go back on the channel and have a look. Hi Debs, how you doing? Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Alan, parsnips, start those on kitchen paper as well. Then you can see if they're germinating. Yeah, that's very true, Alan. You can chit them, just like we were talking about with peas. And some people chit them actually on damp compost as well, and do it that way. So yeah, they're really bad germinators. But what I tend to do is I'll make holes in the parsnip bed about 6 inches apart, and then in each hole I'll put 3 seeds. And when they germinate, if I get more than one, I will just snip off the weaker ones with some scissors and leave the strong one to grow on. Yeah, very waterlogged, Michelle, very waterlogged. So, I'll show you, Mama. I've germinated parsnips in toilet rolls. They will go out as soon as I can see roots at the bottom. Yeah, you can. And most years I would use, you know, the little dissolving cardboard pots that you get. Used to be called peat pots, but they're not peat now, they're cardboard. I would start parsnips off in those in January and put them out beginning of March. But you do have to be careful that the roots don't start to curl up in the bottom of the pot, because the first thing a parsnip will do is put down a big taproot, which is what we eat. It's the root of the parsnip. And if that root hits any sort of restriction, whether that's a stone or a stick or just some really hard ground that it can't get through, or the bottom of a pot, what it will then do is it will fork, and that's why you end up with deformed parsnips. You get, instead of a nice long parsnip, you get lots of roots coming off it. Mags, how deep do you plant parsnip seeds? Not very deep. Probably 10 millimeters, something like that, half an inch, because they're only a very small seed. They're very thin. And I always work on the basis that the smaller the seed, the shallower the planting. You don't want them trying to spend ages and ages coming up through the soil or the compost. Yeah, Michelle, I thought you'd be growing them in pots when you said they were in the greenhouse. It's a brilliant idea, and you can grow them all through the winter that way as well. If you've got a greenhouse or a polytunnel, you can grow them all winter. So some other stuff I've got growing here. These are some pak choi that I sowed last week and just starting to come up. So they'll be good. They'll be going out once they've grown on a bit. And over here, we've got some chard and some kohlrabi. And they were sown probably 2 weeks ago now. And they're coming on nicely. They need potting on pretty soon into their own individual pots. And they'll go out as well. Anybody else growing kohlrabi or chard, pak choi? Michelle, they'll be safe from the pigeons. You're obsessed with netting. Yeah, I don't blame you. Birds can destroy a crop in no time. They're worse as slugs in the speed of which they do it. And pigeons are an absolute nightmare. We haven't got so many here now because of the building works, but yeah, we did have a lot of wood pigeons around there. So, has anyone planted potatoes yet? Anyone got any potatoes going? I haven't put any in yet. I'm still waiting for the ground to warm up. But they're chitting away in the shed, and I am conscious that time is now ticking a little bit, especially for the first earlies. I think we've got Lady Crystal for the first earlies, and I really want to get those started as soon as I can. And I will grow those in pots. I think this year I'm going to grow the early potatoes in pots and the main crop in the ground. I'm going to grow them along the fence, because that area is quite tough still. The soil's quite tough and it stays damp as well. It's the lowest part of the garden. So when you grow potatoes, generally they will break up the soil a little bit for crops the following year. Okay, so we're up to speed with the chat. Brilliant. So what else have I got on my list? So broad beans. Has everybody got broad beans growing this year? A lot of people start them in pots, and I thought I'd try putting them direct in the ground quite early this year. It was still quite cold when I did it, and they are just about coming up, I think. So if that works, I won't be doing them in pots anymore, because they're a bit like parsnips in that the first thing they want to do is put down this big root, and when you grow them in pots, they just curl up, and that's not really what the plant wants to do. It wants to put a root straight down. So that's, I think, my strategy for broad beans this year. It's a little bit of an experiment this year. If it works, then that's how I'm going to do it. Gee, what's the best potato for jacket potato? Marish Piper, they're good. King Edward. King Edward's kind of the go-to potato for everything, isn't it? Chips, mash, roasts, jackets. And if you want, when you plant your potatoes, if you want big potatoes, then you need to leave only 1 or 2 chits on the potato when you plant it. So when you chip your potato, very often you'll have 3 or 4 shoots coming out of it. Take some of those off, rub them off, and leave 1 or 2. And what you'll then get are bigger potatoes, as opposed to lots of smaller potatoes. And your new potatoes will take about 100 days to grow, whereas your main crop, so things like King Edward, pink fir apple, Marish Piper, etc., will take 120 days ish. It's not an exact science, but about 120 days. Debs, I'm doing King Edwards for the first time this year. We'll try that and remove some chits. Yeah, so when you remove the chit, try and dig the chit out of the potato a little bit as well. So you could use, you know, the old-fashioned potato peeler that was like a pointy thing with a, yeah, just dig them out, or use a coin or a knife or something, and just dig them out of the potato a little bit. Because if you just rub them off, they'll grow again. Hi, Stephen. Thanks for joining us. Next thing is to build a P-frame to direct sow those as well. Yeah, I think I'm going to grow them up the netting again, up the side of the polytunnel this year. Yeah, I think peas, you could probably sow peas direct now. I think I certainly could anyway. I think I'll be putting some direct in this next week, because there's the rule of 10 garden challenge for those of you that are taking part. For those that don't know, I started a challenge back in February, and it started on the 1st of March. I haven't done anything with it yet, purely because we haven't had the temperatures to sow anything direct, because one of the rules is everything has to be sown direct. You can't bring it on in pots. But I think I will be putting peas like Steve in the ground direct for part of that challenge. Debs, yeah, I got one of those. What's one of those, Debs? Have I missed something there? Too many wood pigeons, they drive me nuts. Oh, yeah, okay. Mags, great tip about removing some of the chits. Yeah. It does work. It does work. So, like with new potatoes, I'll probably leave 2 or 3 chits on there, because new potatoes are best sort of egg size. You know, you want some nice salad potatoes for the spring and the early summer, because if you're planting your new potatoes, your earlies in, say, March, they're going to be ready come the end of June, pretty much. So you want some nice salad potatoes for the summer, and then your main crop, we would prefer to have the bigger ones that you can get, say, 2 or 3 roast potatoes out of, or a jacket. Debs, we have too many rodents to direct sow. I even have to cover module trays in the greenhouse. That's a nightmare. We have got a couple of rats here, although I think now they've ripped those trees out, that will probably send them packing somewhere else. But yeah, the rodents, rats are a nightmare. Mice, squirrels, they can be a problem. Everything's a problem, really, if you're trying to grow vegetables, slugs, snails, you know. The old-fashioned spud peeler. Yeah, the long pointy thing. My mum used to have one. Nowadays, there are all these plastic handle things, aren't they, with a blade between them. Michelle, when is the best time to start celery? I'm told they're sometimes hard to germinate. Yes, they are. There's a tray behind me with celery and celeriac in, and they are quite hard to get going, and they like damp conditions. So all throughout their life, they like to be damp. If you let them dry out, they won't like it at all. And they can take their time to germinate. So if you've only just sown them, you know, in the last, say, couple of weeks, give it some time. Try and keep them sort of around 10 degrees, maybe a bit warmer if you can, just to get them to germinate. And they need a lot of light as well. But once they're growing, they need lots of water. They hate to dry out. The same with celeriac. Part of the same family. Julie, when do you plant celeriac? So when they're big enough to go out, basically, because they're so small. They grow so slowly, which is why we start them early in the year. It takes a while for them to grow on, and slugs and snails love celery and celeriac. So put them out when they're big enough, and get your slug pots and beer traps out beforehand where you're going to plant them. Debs, I have traps set. Yeah, all 3 rats, mice, and squirrels. Air rifle, Debs. That's what you need, an air rifle. Max, I've got one of those too. Steve Brummel, my spud order hasn't even arrived yet. Touch wood in a couple of weeks. Stephen, you're in the States, I think, aren't you? Somewhere. I don't know what your climate's like, exactly where you live. But certainly here in the UK, the seed potatoes have been in the shops now in the garden centres for weeks, probably a couple of months. Genera, hello, thanks for joining us. And thank you for that, 1,000 subs, yeah, thank you. They've shown our age, yeah. Michelle, spud peel is a great invention. Mags, I've got spuds all over my windowsills, chitting. Yeah, my shed. I can't do any work in my shed at the moment because it's full of chitting potatoes and terracotta pots and all that sort of stuff that I don't want to put outside yet, because if we have a hard frost and the pots are wet, it can crack them. So they're still in the shed, along with a lot of other things. Stephen, celeriac is a favourite of mine. Makes great mash added to spuds. Yeah, I think we've discussed that before, haven't we, Stephen? Yeah, celeriac and potato mash. The problem with celeriac, I find, is you can grow the plant, but it's keeping the slugs off it. You can dig up what you think is a nice celeriac, and then when you cut into it, the slugs have made holes all through it. My aim is terrible. You have to get some target practice in, Debs, or get somebody else to do it. Indiana. Okay, so is it pretty cold still there? Is it, Stephen, in Indiana? I don't know. My geography of the States isn't brilliant. Chitting, not hitting. Yeah, I thought you meant chitting. Yeah. That's one thing I miss about home is garden centres. Yeah, I hear this from quite a few American YouTubers that the garden centres in America aren't like we have here, or not so many of them, not so well stocked, or I think the people from the States love our garden centres. I think gardening is a UK tradition, isn't it? I think maybe even started here. I don't know, but yeah. Can you grow cauliflower upright to save room? Yeah, you can. You can buy the vertical planters. You could grow anything that way, I suppose. And if you're limited on space, it's a good idea. Cauliflower are quite heavy plant though. So whatever you're growing them in, if you're growing them in one of these vertical plastic planters with outlets on various sides of it, make sure it's well and truly rooted to the ground, because they're quite heavy plant with all their leaves and stuff. And you need to think about netting it as well. How would you net it? And that sort of thing, away from cabbage white butterfly, pigeons, etc. Michelle, no worries, Jace, thank you. Okay, so is anyone working on any garden projects before they get into the growing season? So things like compost bays or paths, or getting their greenhouse ready and moved, that sort of thing. Because I'm at a point where I'm kind of waiting for the soil to warm up a bit. So I'm trying to squeeze in all these jobs that I've got to get done before I get really busy planting stuff out. Debs, my collies never get big enough to be that heavy. Yeah, they can be difficult, can't they? They can be difficult. I find with cauliflowers, you look at them one day and you're like, there's not really a lot there. It's not going to come to anything. And then when you look at it again and you sort of have a rummage around in the leaves, there's a head of cauliflower in there. So I think they are growing. I think you just got to keep your eye on them, because they just seem to appear from nowhere, a bit like courgettes. You can look at a courgette one day and it's like that, and the next day you've got a marrow. Stephen, that's quite right, Jason, especially when I see people going around the garden centres looking at the seeds and spuds. Yeah. I know, quite a lot of the American YouTubers and Canadian YouTubers don't seem to have the same access to the seeds and varieties and things that we do here. Debs, we've just extended our greenhouse. It's now 14 foot by 6 foot. Wow, that's a good sized greenhouse. Added a couple more raised beds. Well, that's brilliant. I mean, surely you can make some inroads into making that rodent proof, maybe. I don't know if you can, I don't know. Could you put something down into the soil to stop them digging in? That sort of thing. Stephen, just had to buy a small blow-away greenhouse as I've run out of space in my lean-to greenhouse. I think the blow-away ones are really good as long as you can stop them blowing away. That's the problem with them, because the metal that they're made of, and that's quite cheap, isn't it? So it's putting them in a location where they're going to get the sun but not get the wind, which where we live, it's just so windy at times. The two clotches that we bought and put out just outside this window on this patio, they got absolutely shredded in the winter from the wind. I put bricks in them to stop them blowing away, but the wind just tore the covers to pieces. Mags, I've got a new cheap green polytunnel to put up and a raised bed to build. Only got a small garden, so can't fit much in. Mags, before we moved here, my back garden was tiny. It was probably 5 meters by 8 meters or something like that. And it was north facing, and we still managed to grow crops, potatoes, carrots, parsnips, some brassicas, peas, beans. Had a plum tree at the back, strawberry patch, all that sort of stuff. So we had lots of little clotches and cold frames and things, and it worked really well. It's just when you're in a small area, you've got to be a bit more picky about what you want to grow, I guess. And I think it's more grow. If it's in a small area, invest the time into growing things that you've grown well before and that you enjoy. And because if you start to try and grow things that might be a bit more difficult to grow, you're taking up space for where you could be growing something else. Debs could do, but traps are doing okay, and it's a lot of hassle. Yeah, it is. Trying to bury mesh and all that is a lot of hassle. Stephen, changing over my old wooden beds to corrugated steel ones. Yeah, I think perhaps a bit more longevity in steel and slugs. Certainly here, if I put any wood down on the ground, the slugs are in it straight away. And that is the only problem, isn't it, with raised beds or sleepers and all that sort of stuff. You're giving a habitat to things that are going to eat your plants, slugs and snails and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, corrugated steel is probably a better option. Michelle Wolf, love cauliflower. Yeah, so do I when I can grow it. Yeah, cauliflower, brassic, calabrese. We really like those. Spinach, quite like kale. Yeah, all of those nice greens and brassicas family. So, what's the weather doing in your area? Because I know here we've been getting quite a bit of rain, but some of the people down in the south have actually been getting some half decent weather the last few days. So we've not done too bad. And then today it's absolutely hammered it down, and it was starting to dry out, and now it's just a swamp again. So it's going to be a few days before it drains free, and that's if it stops raining. Debs, I'm not very adventurous when it comes to veg. I just sow more of what I know. I like to try a few different things, but not many. Yeah, I very rarely deviate from what I know. I've only been growing kohlrabi, chard and things for a couple of years. It always used to be the staples until we moved here. And because we've got more space, I can kind of experiment a bit. But it was always the staples for us: potatoes, carrots, parsnips, those sort of things. I'm not going to. Michelle, bought cage type rat traps, but haven't thought what I will do when I catch one. Give it to someone else to get rid of. That's what you should do. Anyway, back of the car, take it down to some woods, let it go. Mags, freezing cold and wet, central Scotland. Yeah, a bit further north than us. Probably central Scotland, you're probably 400 miles further north than we are. So I would imagine your nighttime temperatures are cooler than us. Yvonne Ward, hi Yvonne. Derbyshire rain. Peak District. It's always raining in Derbyshire. Debs, it's done nothing but rain all day today. Yeah, same here. Up until then, it's been really nice for a good few days. Even wore a t-shirt on one occasion. Yeah, it was. It was yesterday when I was doing the steps. In the afternoon, it was really quite warm. And today it's just soaking wet and cold. Crochet Mama, Devon's wet as well. Okay. Stephen, sunny at the minute, but down to 28 Fahrenheit tonight, which means all the peppers will have to come back into the dining room tonight. 28 Fahrenheit. What's that, Stephen? That's got to be. It's got to be pretty much freezing point, isn't it? 28. Yeah, it's that time of year. You're doing the plant dance, aren't you? Things go out in the day and they come in at night, and covering things over every night, uncovering them in the day. And I find it's such a busy time of the year just doing that, let alone planting things, getting things ready, sowing seeds, etc. So yeah, it's that constant in and out. And because we don't have this room to do that this year, it's making it even harder. Salvage Gardener. Hi, Colin. How you doing? My small veg growing space is around 10 by 6 meters, so I'm constantly looking at ways to grow more by using containers. Yeah, container gardening. Yeah, why not? And even root crops, as long as the container's deep enough, you can grow stuff. Michelle Welsh, West Midlands here. Yeah, we're just west of the West Midlands, and it's wet. Debs, I could tell you, Michelle, but I might get. All right, Michelle Welsh. 32F is freezing point, I think. Oh, okay. So it's below freezing then, 28. Yeah, that's not going to do peppers and chilies any good at all. I think it's a sort of 10-degree rule, isn't it, for most things that we put outside that are sort of summer crops. The 10-degree rule for, chilies, peppers, tomatoes, all that sort of stuff. That's what I work on. If it's going to get below 10 degrees, then I need to protect them or bring them indoors. Debs, I live with an ex-farmer, so he has no qualms about dealing with them. There you go. Problem solved. I'm sure he's got more than an air rifle to deal with them. Stephen, -2. Okay, so 28F is -2. Yeah, that won't do your chilies and peppers any good at all. I looked at our forecast here for the next week, and we're almost in double digits, day and night. We're actually getting a bit warmer this week. So if it ever stops raining, I think I will probably put out some of the onions. I'm not going to put them all out. I'm going to keep some back. But I'll probably put out some of the onions and some of the peas, and probably start getting the brassicas bed ready, getting the hoops in place and the netting and things for when they grow on and they can go out. So yeah, I'm constantly trying to look at what the forecast is going to be for the next week. Aubergines as well. You've got those up in pots, I guess, of you, Steve, ready to put out at a later date. Yeah, they're not going to like -2. Michelle, I'll bring them to you then. Yeah. Deb's husband's going to deal with all the rats, so we've established that. And let us know the answers, Debs, for rats. Stephen, my onions have just had a haircut. See, I don't do that. I know a lot of people do. I don't do that. I know it kind of it doesn't do them any harm, and it may even encourage new growth, I guess. But I tend to put them out when they're still quite small. In fact, this year I've got them growing in these sort of trays, and I've just broadcast sown them in those trays, and they're all up now, probably that sort of length. And I'm not even going to pot them on. I know a lot of people pot them on, put them in modules, individual module cells and whatever you, and grow them. But I think I'm just going to plant them direct from the seed trays into the soil and cut that step out completely, and then just put a bit of fleece over them to keep the pigeons away. Debs, I don't like -2. No. Steve Brown, had to, Jason. They were flopping everywhere. That's a problem, innit? You start growing stuff indoors and you try to get the timing right, and then you have a cold spring and you're left with all these plants. I mean, last year in here, it was like a jungle, and I had to keep waiting and waiting so that I could put them outside. Julie, have you thought of growing mushrooms? I have actually, but I've never done it before, so I'd have to do a lot of research on that. I think you're going to need damp, humid, warm, dark environments for mushrooms. So I guess if you've got a cellar or something like that, that would be pretty good. Debs, I don't normally snip my onions, but I did this time as they got a bit long and tangled. I reckon they are doing better, but we'll see. Right, okay. Okay. Maybe, because I've got 2 trays of onions going, so maybe I'll hedge my bets. Perhaps I'll plant 1 tray out if it stops raining, and I'll give the other tray a haircut, and we'll have a bit of an experiment and see how it goes. How much do you cut off? Is it sort of, what, an inch? I suppose my onions are about 4 inches tall, something like that. So how much should I trim off? Yeah, I do that with the leeks. They just go straight in the ground, Stephen, so you just break them up in the pot, plant them out. I'm with you there, Michelle. Bring on the sun. So you cut them in half. Right, okay. So cut them down to 2 inches. All right, I'll try that. I'll plant 1 tray out and I'll trim the others back and save them as the reserves for when the slugs and whatever you eat the first lot that I put out. Because I've got a lot of onions this year. I've sown 2 packets of Ailsa Craig. So I think there's about 150 seeds in each one. And we've got 50 Red Baron onion sets, and we've got 50 Stir-On onion sets. So I've got to squeeze all of those in somewhere. So if I do lose a few of the young Ailsa Craig, it's not the end of the world. Ian McLaren, hi Ian, thanks for joining us. Cucumbers, last year I grew 3 varieties outdoor, but the plants didn't grow well. I got a crop, but do they need something extra in the soil? Other veg grew well. It may be the actual temperatures, Ian. Cucumbers like it warm. Last year I grew cucumbers in the greenhouse and outdoors, and the ones in the greenhouse did far better, I've got to say, even though they were in smaller pots. As far as feed goes, then you could try fish blood and bone. And I find liquid seaweed, you can buy it in containers that you dilute into a watering can. And liquid seaweed seems to work really well for most things, to be honest, especially things like onions. So, yeah, the cucumbers I grew much better in the greenhouse. And they finished a lot later in the season as well. The ones outside, they were done. The plants were dying by beginning of September, really. So Stephen, you cut yours down to about 4 inches. Right, okay. Michelle, Debs, the serial rat killer. You've got a new name, Debs. Crochet Mama, what are you sowing this week? This week, what am I sowing? If the soil temperature's warmed up a bit with this rain, because it's been quite warm, excuse me, then I'll be putting carrots and parsnips in direct in the ground. If it hasn't warmed up, I probably won't be sowing anything, I don't think, this week. Maybe some more lettuce, but yeah, I think I'll be sowing more things like courgettes and stuff later in the month, because I don't want to run out of space in the house. I've already sown my tomatoes. I did them last week. Debs, do you not have any issues with white onion rot? No, I don't. We've never had it, and I'm pleased we haven't had it. So I'm not really able to offer much advice with that, but I know a lot of YouTube gardeners do suffer from that. Stephen, started my onions same time as the Boxing Day potty mouth show. Yeah, old Steve from Green Side Up, sadly no longer with us. And yeah, he started I think he made everybody aware, didn't he, that was a tradition, that Boxing Day was when you'd sow your onions. I didn't sow mine until the end of January. Debs, it's not that I don't like them, as I used to have gerbils and hamsters. Yeah, but they didn't eat your vegetables, did they? Or did they? I don't know. Stephen, not white rot here, Debs. Touch wood. Yeah, I don't know about white rot. Never had it. Debs, you want to sow your carrots and parsnips this week? Yeah, because when you start sowing those, when you start sowing carrots, that's kind of, well, now it's spring, isn't it? That's one of the first things that you would sow in spring. Well, it is for me. I suppose we could try some radishes as an early crop. Michelle, is it too early to start leeks? No, not at all. Get them going. I've got two of these trays of leeks. They need planting out as well, really. Is it too early? No, Stephen, you're not sowing your tomatoes for a week yet. Yeah, there's still plenty of time, isn't there, for tomatoes? But I would get them sown at some point in March. And if you're going to be growing them outdoors, then we're obviously going to need a good summer too, which we will be. Debs, I've had it before, but managed to save some of the crop. We get it at the allotment, but not at home so far. Yeah, so you need to be careful if you're ever transferring soils or anything, that you don't bring it home with you. Debs, you've sown your leeks. Yeah. February time, March, let's get your leeks sown. Julie, are you going to grow turnips and swede? Probably swede. Yeah, I'll probably have another go at swede this year, but I won't be sowing those until sort of June time, something like that. And with everything else that's going to be growing down there until July, I probably won't have anywhere to plant them anyway. Michelle Walsh, oh good, because they are starting to show signs of life in the greenhouse. Yeah, Yeah, leeks are pretty cold tolerant. I mean, they'll grow through the winter pretty much. So as long as you're not living in a really, really cold place, then if they're big enough, get them outside. You can always put a bit of fleece over them just to keep the pigeons and what have you at bay and give them a little bit of frost protection. One thing with fleece is if you're going to use it to protect any crop, if the leaf of the crop is touching the fleece on the inside and it gets frosty or it drops really, really cold, that leaf could still get damaged. Just because it's inside the fleece doesn't mean it's protected. The fleece isn't touching the plants themselves. Michelle, Debs, I just don't have much luck with Swedes, not sure why. I tried multi-sowing them last year, putting 3 or 4 in a module, and it didn't work. So I think I'm going to go back to individually sowing them. Crochet Mama, what's the best way to sow nasturtium seeds? Don't know. Sorry, I can't help you with that one. Flowers aren't really something I know a lot about. I would imagine multi-purpose compost, and if it's a small seed, shallow planting depth. Keep them warm, keep them damp, and I think it'd be fairly similar to most other seeds, but I can't say I've ever grown them. So Stephen, just potted my Swede on, Julie, only doing 6 of them. There goes Stephen. With Stephen, we could have Swede, celeriac, and potato mash. How about that? With some garlic. That'd be all right, wouldn't it? That'd be nice. Wow, we're already approaching the hour here, guys. That has flown by. So if any of you guys on here have got a YouTube channel, then say so in the comments and put the name of your channel down there, and so other people can click on it and have a look. That's an idea I've got from Danny at the Grow Up channel. I think it's a brilliant idea that YouTubers are able to give some light on other YouTubers, and there's enough room out there for us all. Yeah, I think that sounds nice, don't you, Mags? Swede, celeriac, potato mash with some garlic. Julie, you need to do that. We're not growing the stuff, okay? Yvonne, Crochet Man, I'll just wait till it's warmed up a bit and plant them out as they grow so fast. Okay, there you go, Crochet Mama. Yvonne knows about growing nasturtiums. Stephen, I usually mash carrot and sweet together, shared with Kerrygold butter. I've slathered with Kerrygold butter. Stephen, you're making me hungry. Debs, and don't forget to hit the like button for this video. Thank you, Debs. Yes, please do hit the like button. If you've not seen this channel before, consider subscribing. That would really help. Stephen, Michelle, thanks. Okay, guys, well, thank you. It's the first ever live, and thank you so much for coming along and showing your support. It really does mean a lot. And if you've enjoyed it, and we'll do it again. We'll do it again in, say, a couple of weeks, Sunday night again. And I'll pick another topic for us to discuss. So thank you, guys. Thanks, Stephen. 3:30 in the afternoon there. So it's time for your tea then, mate, yeah? I'm going to have a cup of tea now, and then it's going to be time for bed. So thank you. See you again in a couple of weeks. Thanks, guys. Cheers.